The man on the floor of the airport was quiet, just past midnight. Soft announcements echoed through the empty terminal, and rows of metal seats lined the cold tiled floor. Most travelers had moved on, flights delayed, connections missed. The lucky ones were already on their way. But Keanu Reeves sat still. He wasn't in first class, wasn't behind closed doors, or in some private lounge. He sat by gate C-17, legs stretched out, head leaned back against a backpack, not even a pillow beneath it. No cameras, no assistants, no flashing lights. Just a hoodie, some worn jeans, and the soft glow of vending machines nearby. No one seemed to notice him except for one person, a man in his late 60s. Slouched beside a giant duffel bag, looked like he'd given up. I sat on the floor with his knees tucked in, thin coat wrapped tight around his chest. He hadn't blinked in a while, hadn't moved much either. Keanu had been watching him for the past hour. Not in a weird way, in a quiet way, the kind of way you watch someone who's holding something in, something they're not saying. Eventually, Keanu stood and walked toward the vending machine. He pressed a few buttons and pulled out 2 granola bars and a bottle of water. He walked back over, and without a word, sat next to the man on the floor. The man turned, blinked, stared at him for a second, longer than most people would. "You hungry?" Keanu asked, offering the bar. "I'm fine," the man mumbled. "You don't look fine." "What?" The man didn't answer, but his fingers reached slowly for the granola bar, like pride and hunger were fighting each other. Hunger won. They sat in silence. They ate, neither said much. Then, after a long pause, the man finally said, "You're him, right? John Wick guy." Keanu smiled. "Some people say that." "What are you doing here, on the floor next to me?" Keanu looked around. "Same thing you're doing. Waiting. People like you don't wait. People like me wait." "Nah," Keanu said. "People like us wait. Just differently." A faint smile formed on the man's face, and it faded. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking just a little. "My son's supposed to meet me here," he said, voice cracking. "I haven't seen him in 13 years. Keanu stayed quiet. "I don't even know if he's going to show," the man continued. "I messed up a lot. I left when I shouldn't have. Thought I could fix things later. Turns out, later takes longer than you think." Keanu looked at the man, eyes soft. "Maybe he's thinking the same thing. I doubt it." Keanu leaned back against the wall. "My dad left too. When I was young, I used to think about what I'd say to him if he ever came back." The man looked at him, surprised. "What would you say?" "I don't know. Depends on the day. Sometimes I'd yell. Sometimes I'd just want to know why. And if he told you..." Keanu shrugged. "Doesn't erase the hurt, but maybe it helps the bleeding stop." They sat there, silent again. The airport lights buzzed above. A cleaning lady passed by with a mop. She smiled when she recognized Keanu, but didn't say a word. She just kept mopping, like she knew the moment was too quiet to interrupt. The man shifted a little, unzipped his duffel, pulled out a crumpled envelope. "I wrote him a letter," he said, voice low. "Never mailed it. Didn't have the guts, but I brought it, just in case." Keanu took it gently, didn't read it, just held it for a moment. "If he doesn't come," the man said, "can you read it for me? Like just so someone does?" Keanu nodded. "I will. But I think he's going to show." The man didn't answer. He just leaned back against his duffel and closed his eyes for the first time in hours. Sometime around 2 a.m., Keanu nodded off too. Side by side, 2 strangers, one world famous, the other world weary, slept on the cold floor of gate C-17, and that was the moment a security guard stopped in his tracks. He had his flashlight out, about to check on a reported disturbance. Instead, he froze. He saw a movie star curled beside an old man. Both of them sharing silence and sleep like brothers, and something in the guard's heart softened. He didn't wake them. Instead, he stood watch, and somewhere else in the terminal, a young man in a navy hoodie was asking the gate agent, "Did you see an old guy? Gray coat? Kind of nervous looking?" And just like that, morning began to stretch its fingers across the glass windows. But what happened next would change more than a reunion. It would challenge everything Keanu thought he knew about timing, regrets, and what it means to truly be seen, not as a celebrity, but as a human. The letter he never sent the soft hum of escalators and the quiet chime of early flights filled the terminal. Sunlight began to touch the windows. It stretched across the polished tiles like slow waves. Keanu opened his eyes first. He blinked, sat up, stretched a little, then looked over. The old man beside him was still asleep, his hand gently holding the envelope he'd pulled out last night. Keanu didn't move, just sat there, letting the silence breathe between them. Across the terminal, the young man in the navy hoodie was growing anxious. He had dark circles under his eyes and kept checking his phone. He walked from one gate to the next, scanning faces, gripping a folded paper in his hand. Every time he passed gate C-17, he looked a wail like his heart wasn't ready to face what it might find. He passed again. This time, Keanu stood up. He gently placed his jacket over the old man's shoulders, then walked over. "You looking for someone?" Keanu asked calmly. The young man looked up, startled, then froze. "You're Keanu Reeves?" he said. Stunned, Keanu smiled softly. "Yeah, and I think you're looking for someone who's asleep over there." The young man stared past Keanu, saw the gray coat, the duffel bag. He didn't speak. He didn't move. "He's been waiting all night," Keanu said. "He didn't even know if you'd come." "I almost didn't," the young man admitted. "I've been angry for years. I still am, I guess." But Keanu waited. But when I heard he was coming, something inside me said, if I don't come now, maybe I never will. "Do you want to talk to him?" Keanu asked. The young man nodded slowly. Keanu gently walked him over. The old man was still asleep, curled under the jacket. When the young man got close, his steps slowed. He knelt down. "Dad." The word was barely a whisper, but it hit like thunder. The old man stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and when he saw the face in front of him, he didn't speak either. He just sat there, his hands trembling again, as he pulled the envelope from under the jacket. "I wrote you this," he said, his voice raw. "Never knew if I'd give it to you." The young man didn't take it. Instead, he said, "Why didn't you come back before?" A long silence followed. Keanu quietly stepped back, giving them space, but stayed close enough to hear. "I was ashamed," the old man said. "Ashamed of what I did, of who I was. I thought staying away would hurt you less than coming back broken." "It didn't," the son said. The old man nodded, tears forming. "I thought about calling so many times," he continued. "But every time I picked up the phone, I thought maybe you were better off without me." The son looked away, wiping his eyes. "Do you want to read it?" the father asked, offering the letter again. This time the son took it. He opened the envelope, carefully unfolding the worn paper inside. His hands were shaking too now. He read the first few lines, then stopped. Instead of continuing, he looked up at his father. "Can you read it to me?" he asked. "I want to hear your voice say the words." The old man nodded slowly. He took the paper back, adjusted his glasses, and began to read. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Dear James, not a day has passed that I haven't thought about you. Your face in every mirror, every stranger, every reflection of the boy I left behind. I was selfish. I thought I was protecting you from my mess, but all I did was steal time. I missed your first heartbreak, your first job, your graduation. I missed being your father, but I never stopped being your dad. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But if you ever wonder if I still love you, the answer has always been yes, even in silence, especially in silence. Love, Dad." The son lowered his head. Keanu was still nearby, quiet, leaning against a pillar. He'd seen a lot in his life. He'd lost friends, loved ones. He'd faced cameras and crowds. But nothing had moved him quite like the moment between these two men torn by time, stitched together by something as fragile as hope. The son didn't say much after that. He just leaned forward and hugged his father. A real hug, not the polite kind. The kind that carries years of pain and quiet forgiveness. People in the terminal began to stir. The world was waking up again. Announcements returned. Passengers walked by. No one noticed the reunion happening in the corner, except a small girl holding her teddy bear, who smiled when she saw the hug. She looked at her mother and whispered, "That man looks like John Wick." Her mother laughed softly. "Maybe he is." Keanu smiled as he turned away, slipping quietly into the crowd. But just as he reached the coffee stand, he felt a tap on his shoulder. It was James's son. I never said thank you, James said. Keanu nodded. You didn't have to. You sat with him all night? He was scared, Keanu said. Sometimes all someone needs is to know they're not alone. James looked down, thinking, can I ask you something? He said, sure. Why were you sleeping on the airport floor? Keanu smiled. And what he said next would begin a chain of events neither of them could have expected. Because the truth is he hadn't missed a flight. He wasn't delayed. He had chosen to be there. And the reason for that choice, something deeply personal, was still waiting on the other side of a different gate. The gate he never meant to leave as Keanu walked away from James. The morning light painted soft shadows across the airport floor. The sounds of coffee cups clinking and boarding calls blending into the background felt oddly peaceful. But inside Keanu, something deeper stirred. He hadn't planned to sleep at the airport out of accident. It wasn't because of a missed flight or bad weather. He had chosen this, chosen to be near. Gate F4 to gate most people walk past without thinking, but for him, it was the place he had said goodbye 10 years ago. Her name was Eva, and she had been everything Keanu met her when life was quiet, in between films, in between fame and grief. She had worked at an art therapy studio near Venice Beach. No cameras, no noise, just brushes and color and broken people finding peace through paint. She didn't know who he was at first, or maybe she did and just didn't care. That made Keanu fall even harder. They would walk by the ocean for hours. Sometimes they didn't speak, just held hands. Silence had become a safe place for them both. But Eva had a secret. She had cancer. Not the kind that comes quickly, the kind that whispers for years before roaring loud. Keanu stayed through it all, through treatments, through pain, through nights, where all she could do was hold his hand and cry, and when she could still move. She dreamed of Paris. I want to see the light there before I can't see anymore, she told him. Keanu had bought the tickets, planned the whole trip, but on the day of the flight, she collapsed. They never made it to Paris. Instead, Gate F4 became the last place. He held her before the ambulance came. She was gone 3 weeks later, and Keanu never flew again from that gate. Not until last night he had returned. With no luggage, no ticket, just the same worn-out backpack and a quiet hope that sitting there might bring him closer to her again. A memory, a whisper, anything, and maybe in sitting beside that old man. Sharing silence with a stranger, something in Keanu had healed too. He walked slowly now, back toward Gate F. For this time he wasn't avoiding it. This time he was walking toward it. He sat in the same seat he had sat in 10 years ago. His fingers brushed the armrest. Remembering how tightly Eva had held his hand, she had been shaking, scared, but still smiling. I'm not afraid of dying, she had whispered. I'm afraid of being forgotten. Keanu closed his eyes. I haven't forgotten you, he whispered back now. A woman nearby heard his voice. She turned. Her eyes widened slightly. Are you Keanu Reeves? He smiled gently. Some days, she sat down beside him without asking. She looked young, maybe in her 20s, dressed in army green. A patch on her backpack said Sergeant Donnie. You okay? She asked. Keanu nodded, visiting an old memory. I do that too, she said. This was the gate where I last saw my brother. He was shipping out to Afghanistan, never came home. Keanu looked at her. He used to say, she continued, that airports aren't just for goodbyes. There. For second chances, Keanu stared at the gate sign. Maybe he was right, he said. They sat in silence for a while. Not awkward. Just shared quiet. Then she asked, Can I take a picture with you? Only if you tell me your brother's name, Keanu said. She smiled, eyes misting. Eli. They took the photo. Not a selfie, not forced. Just two people, side by side, honoring people they'd lost. After she left, Keanu pulled out his phone. He hadn't touched it in hours. There were texts, missed calls, offers, interviews, schedules, but one message stood out. It was from an unknown number. It read, You don't know me. But you helped my dad last night. He hasn't smiled in years. He's smiling now. Thank you. Keanu stared at the screen. He didn't reply. He just smiled. Then, just as he stood to leave gate F4, a voice behind him spoke. You keep showing up where people need you. He turned. It was the janitor, the same woman who had passed by quietly the night before, pushing her mop. Now she stood in uniform, holding a cup of coffee. I know who you are, she said, but more than that, ... I know what you are. Keanu looked puzzled. You're a place of pause, she said. Some people are chaos, others are noise, but you're the moment where people breathe. Keanu didn't know what to say. You came here to sit with ghosts, she continued. But maybe you also came here so someone could sit with you. And with that, she placed the coffee next to him and walked away. Disappearing into the morning crowd, he sat back down. No interviews. No movie sets. No makeup chairs. Just him and memories and the quiet. And as the day moved forward, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would keep showing up, not just for others, but for himself too. Because sometimes, healing doesn't come with loud moments or big answers. Sometimes it comes on the floor of an airport. It's beside a stranger, under the flickering glow of a gate number. And sometimes, the past finds a way to nod back. Asterisk a girl with no shoes-be-mide afternoon, gate F4 was crowded again. Families rushed. Business travelers paced. Children cried. The silence that had cradled Keanu in the morning had been replaced by chaos. But Keanu still sat quietly, same seat, same posture, same calm, until he saw her, a little girl, maybe 7 years old. Tangled hair. Teen hoodie, 2 sizes too big. She stood barefoot near the corner, close to the trash can, holding a paper bag like it carried. Her whole world. Keanu watched for a moment. No adult seemed near her, no parent, no guardian. Just the bag in her hand and a lost look in her eyes. Then the girl did something strange. She walked over to a man asleep on a bench and gently placed her bag next to his shoes. Then she backed away and waited. When the man woke up, confused, he found a sandwich and a note inside. He looked around, but the girl had already moved on. Keanu stood. He followed her slowly, carefully, not to scare her, just to understand. She went from gate to gate, always quiet, always watching. Sometimes she picked half-eaten snacks from abandoned trays. Sometimes she folded napkins into little shapes and left them on chairs. A worker at a food stall called out to her, "Hey, I told you, don't come back." The girl froze. Keanu stepped in. "She's with me," he said. The worker blinked. "Wait, yeah." Keanu nodded without a smile. "And she's with me." The worker backed off, muttering something under his breath. The girl looked up at Keanu, eyes wide, scared, unsure. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Nina." "Hi, Nina." "I'm Keanu, I know," she said softly. "Are you here alone?" She nodded, eyes lowering. "Where's your mom or dad?" She shook her head. "Mom left last night. She said she'd come back." But she didn't. Keanu crouched down to her level. "Did you tell anyone?" "I was scared," she said. "What if they take me away?" Keanu looked at her dirty feet, her trembling hands, then he slowly sat cross-legged beside her on the floor. "Sometimes," said, "people like to pretend they're invisible, but not everyone wants to stay that way." Nina looked at him, confused. "Do you want to stay?" "Invisible?" he asked. She shook her head. "Then we're going to fix that," he said. They sat there for a moment. Keanu pulled a granola bar from his backpack and handed it to her. Nina's eyes lit up. "You have snacks like superheroes," he smiled. "Some call it a skill." A woman nearby had been watching. She approached carefully. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Keanu nodded. "Do you happen to work here?" "I'm with airport services," she said. "Child safety too." "Why?" Keanu explained quietly. The woman knelt beside Nina. "Hey, sweetie," she said warmly. "We're going to find your mom, okay?" Nina gripped Keanu's hand tightly. "Can he come with me?" The woman looked at Keanu, surprised. "She trusts you." Keanu nodded. "I'll stay." They walked together to the airport's small family center. Inside, Nina sat on a beanbag. She played with a basket of old toys, but kept glancing at the door like she feared it might close on her. The airport staff brought her food, juice, a pair of soft socks. Keanu sat nearby, watching over her like a quiet guardian. "She's been wandering around since last night," one worker whispered. "No record of the mother's return. We've notified authorities, but it may take time." Keanu's jaw tightened. "Can I speak to her?" he asked. They nodded. He walked over to Nina. "You okay?" "I don't want to go to a place where they lock kids," she said. "My friend at school said that happens." "You're not going to be locked up," Keanu said. "You're going to be safe."
Oh, we know.
Paused. "Because I've been scared before, too. Someone helped me when I couldn't help myself." Nina was quiet, and now he added, "I get to help you." She smiled just a little. "You're like, if Batman was nice," she said. Keanu laughed. "For the first time that day, I'll take that." Over the next hour, the staff made calls, took photos for identification, and filed a report. But Keanu did more than wait. He stayed with her. He drew with her, listened to her stories, helped her wash her hands, gave her his hoodie when she said. The room felt cold. And then, just as they were about to send Nina to a nearby care facility, someone walked through the door. A young woman, wild-eyed, breathless. "Nina." She cried. Nina turned. Her face lit up. Double quotes, "Mom." The two ran into each other's arms. The mother sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I lost my job. I thought if I could just find help, I'd come back." Keanu watched silently, then stood to give them space. But the mother rushed to him. You're Keanu Reeves?" He nodded. "You stayed with her?" "She stayed with me," he said gently. The mother broke down again. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu looked at her. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't disappear again." She nodded, tears rolling. "We'll help you," said one of the airport staff. "We'll connect you to services, housing, food. You're not alone." And just like that, something in the room shifted. Hope walked back in. As Keanu stepped outside, the sun had shifted again. The world kept moving. But for Nina, for her mother, for the old man reunited with his son, for the sergeant with a photo. In her hands, something had changed. And as Keanu reached his car, ready to leave the airport after nearly 24 hours, a call came through on his phone. It was a blocked number. He almost didn't answer, but something told him to. A familiar voice on the other end spoke softly. "Mr. Reeves, we found something. It's about Eva." And just like that, his world tilted again. Asterisk, the voice he never expected, Keanu, froze in the parking lot. Phone pressed to his ear, heart suddenly pounding. "What did you say?" he asked, steady but low. Voice on the other end belonged to a man who introduced himself as Dr. Farley. He said he worked at a hospice center in Santa Barbara. "We were sorting through some patient records for transfer, Doctor," Farley said. "We found something connected to Eva. A recording, addressed to you." Keanu went quiet, his breath caught. "A recording?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "It's a video. She made it a few days before she passed. We had it stored in our private file system. It was only recently recovered after we digitized our archives." Keanu leaned against the hood of his car, suddenly overwhelmed. "Can you send it?" he asked, voice barely holding steady. "I'd rather you come in person," the doctor said gently. "Some things, ... are meant to be heard in the right place." There was a long pause. "I understand," Keanu said. That night, Keanu didn't go home. He drove to Santa Barbara in silence. No music, no phone calls, just memories flickering like headlights on a dark road. He remembered her laugh, the way she painted with her fingers when brushes didn't feel right. How she called him Quiet Thunder because he always appeared softly. But his presence always stayed long after. He remembered how she'd whispered goodbye in gate F4. Too weak to say anything more, and now there was something more. By the time he reached the hospice, it was past midnight, but Dr. Farley was waiting. He led Keanu into a small room with a television and a chair. "Take your time," he said, placing a flash drive in the player. "I'll wait outside." Keanu sat. The screen flickered, then came to life. And there she was. Eva, her face was thinner, her eyes tired, but her smile. It was still her. "Still bright," Keanu single quotes, his hands clenched. She looked into the camera and spoke. "Hi, Thunder." "She," said Keanu's breath caught. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it to Paris. And you didn't let go. I knew you wouldn't." She laughed softly. "I asked the nurse to help me make this. I wanted to leave something. Not for the world, not for fans or headlines. Just for you." She looked down, then back up. "I didn't get to say what I needed to say at the airport. I was scared, not of dying, but of leaving you with all this silence." Keanu's eyes filled. "So here's what I want you to remember," Eva continued. "You showed me love when I had nothing to give back. You stayed when everyone else ran. You gave me peace in my final days, and that's more than most people ever get in a lifetime." Her voice cracked. "But now, it's your turn." She leaned forward a little. "Live." Keanu's lips parted. He didn't breathe. "Don't carry me like a shadow. Carry me like a song. I don't want to haunt you. I want to guide you. Every time you help someone, I'm there. Every time you choose kindness over fame, I'm there. You don't need to. Hold on to the pain to remember me." She wiped a tear from her own eye. "You've always had a big heart, Keanu. Don't shrink it for me. Grow it. Share it." Then, just before the video ended, she smiled one last time. "Go to Paris. Me with you." The screen went black. Keanu sat there. No words, no sound. Just the weight of love and grief and release wrapping around him. He closed his eyes when he opened them. Stood. Dr. Farley was waiting outside. She was remarkable, the doctor said. Softly, Keanu nodded. "Do you have a copy of the video?" he asked. "Yes, we'll give it to you." Keanu took it, held it close like something sacred. Then he looked out the hospice window, beyond the glass. The ocean shimmered beneath the moonlight. For the first time in years, he didn't feel lost in the night. He felt guided the next morning. Keanu booked a ticket. First flight to Paris. Economy seat. No fanfare. Just one man carrying a flash drive and a promise at the airport. He passed by gate F4 again. He paused, stood quietly, then placed a small card on the seat where Eva once sat. It simply read, "You're still with me?" But the story wasn't done. As he boarded his flight, a stewardess stopped him. "Mr. Reeves," she said gently. "There's a young woman in seat 19A. She's having a panic attack. Flying alone, afraid. We don't want to force her off the plane, but she's scared." Keanu looked past her. Could see the girl curled in her seat, shaking. "May I speak to her?" he asked. "Please." The stewardess said. He walked down the aisle, sat beside the girl, and just as he had done with the old man and the lost child, and even his own past, he leaned close, not as a star, not as a savior, but simply as a human being, and said, "Hey, you're not alone." The flight to Paris plane hummed with quiet energy as passengers settled into their seats. The engines hadn't started yet, but emotions were already in motion. Seat 19A belonged to a young woman named Eliza, barely 22. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands trembled against the seatbelt. Her chest rose and fell in short, sharp breaths. She hadn't flown in years. Not since the crash that took her older brother, her only family now. She was trying to start over. She had an art school admission letter in her bag and memories she couldn't leave behind, and beside her, a stranger who didn't feel like a stranger at all. Keanu sat quietly, no rush in his voice, no pressure in his presence. "Do you want to hold something?" he asked softly. Eliza blinked through her tears. He reached into his backpack and pulled out Ava's flash drive. "This is someone I loved on it," he said. "Every time I fly, I carry her with me." Eliza held it like it was made of glass. "She's gone," she whispered. "She is?" he said, nodding. Dot. But some people don't leave. They just change how they show up. Eliza wiped her face. I'm scared of crashing, she admitted. I was too, Kiana said. Not just planes. Life, pain, regret. But I've learned something important. Shh. She looked at him. Fear doesn't disappear, he said. It just gets softer when you share it with someone. For the next few minutes, they talked about art, about grief, about starting again, even when the world feels broken. And by the time the flight took off, Eliza had stopped shaking. She leaned back, eyes closed, still gripping the flash drive, and Keanu. He watched the clouds outside the window, fingers tapping gently on the armrest. Not with anxiety, but with purpose. When the plane landed in Paris, he didn't rush off. He waited until Eliza stepped out safely. He waited until she waved, back with a small, grateful smile. And then he walked into the city of light. Paris was soft that morning. The streets were quiet. The air carried hints of warm bread and blooming flowers. Keanu walked slowly, every step echoing with memory. He visited a small garden near Montmartre. Eva had once painted it from a photograph there. He sat. He pulled out a tiny photo of her one she had taken herself. Smiling with a paintbrush in her mouth, he held it up to the light. We made it, he whispered. He placed the photo beside a small bush, under the shade of lavender. Not a grave, not a goodbye, a beginning. A promise kept later that day. A local street artist spotted Keanu sitting alone. She recognized him, not as a celebrity, but as someone who looked like he carried 1,000 stories in his eyes. She offered to sketch him. He agreed. Under one condition, draw me, he said, but not as I look. She frowned. Then how? Draw. Me, as someone finding peace. The artist smiled. I see it already. The sketch she made would later hang in her small studio window. It showed a man with gentle eyes, a half smile, and a quiet strength. Beside him, in the corner of the drawing, a barely visible figure of a woman, watching over him like a ghost made of light. That sketch became famous weeks later, not because of who was in it, but because of what it made people feel. Peace, healing, hope. And back in Los Angeles, the airport at Gate F4 saw something strange happen over the next few months. Janitor began leaving tiny paper hearts on the armrest of the seat where Keanu once sat. A sign went up on the wall quietly, without fanfare. Just a small plaque. Sometimes, kindness waits at Gate F4. People who sat there started sharing their stories. A girl who lost her sister, a man facing divorce, a nurse, between two jobs. And somehow, that one gate, that one quiet place, became a space where people paused, breathed, remembered that being seen is sometimes all it takes to stay standing. Keanu never spoke publicly about what happened those 24 hours. No interviews, no social posts. But he didn't need to, because kindness doesn't need a camera. Grief doesn't need a stage. And healing just needs time. A stranger. And a little space on the floor next to someone willing to sit with you in the silence.